In attaching my band together with the neckline, I will be opening this up like so, and the right side of my band will be facing the wrong side of my shirt like so, and this has to start from the center back. So I have a notch on my center back on the neckline, and I have a notch on the band as well. So you have to place a notch in order to indicate your center back. So the stitching is going to start from the center back towards the front on this side and on the other side. So I have the center back pinned, and I will be pinning the remaining part on this side and on the other side. Don't forget, you have to open up your neck band. So I pick one side of the neck band, so which I'm pinning together with the neckline, not the two edges. I'm done with the pinning of this side, then I will be pinning the other side. So after pinning, I will take this to my sewing machine and I will stitch with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. So I'm stitching with 1/2 inch of seam allowance because I added 1/2 inch of seam allowance. If your seam allowance is not up to 1/2 inch, so make sure you stitch with the exact seam allowance you added, because this part is very important. Your neckline must not be too wide or too tight. So guys, after stitching this together, the next step is to open this up like so, and I will be applying a top stitch while my seam allowance is facing towards the neck band. So guys, now I have the neckline top stitch, as you can see. So this is the wrong side of my shirt, while this is the right side of my shirt. So after top stitching, then I will have to trim down the seam allowance I have on the neckline, and if the inside of your shirt is still looking bulky, then you can place a notch all around the seam allowance. So with what I have here, this is okay. So the next step is to finish the edges of the neckline. So in doing this, I will fold my neck band over to cover up the seam allowance like so. Then I will be folding in 1/2 inch. So it has to be from one side of the placket to the other side. So I will mark out my seam allowance and I will be folding this inward like so. So after folding, it has to cover up the seam allowance I have here. It has to cover up the seam I have on the neckline. So guys, now I have the edges of my neckband pinned, as you can see, from this side to the other side. So it's time to apply an edge stitches very close to the edges of the neckline, following the shape I have on the neckline. So I will stitch this. Make sure the seam you have on the neckline area, which is the edge stitches, is very neat, because this is going to be showing on the right side of your shirt. So this is the right side of my shirt, while this is the wrong side. So the stitches I will be applying now has to be very neat. So guys, now I have the neckline finished properly, as you can see. So the next step is to finish the remaining part of the neckband, which is going to serve as the rope. So in doing this, firstly I will be shaping the edges of the neckband. So I'll fold this into half like so. Then on this part, which is the opening side, I will measure 2 inches upward. Okay, then I will connect the 2 inches point to the other edges So this is just to give the edges of the rope a very good shape, like so. Then I will trim it off. And I will be applying the same shape on the other side. Now I have the two edges of the rope properly shaped. So the next step is to finish the edges. In doing this, I will be folding this part right side facing the right side, like so. Then I will be stitching from this point to this point. So I will stitch with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. So after stitching, I will turn the inside out. So I will make sure I push all the seam allowance, all the piece of fabrics I have inside, outward properly. So on the other edges as well, the same method. So I will take this to my sewing machine now, and I will be closing this part with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. So guys, now I have this stitch, as you can see. So I will trim down my seam allowance, then I will be turning this inside out. So after turning, I will make sure I push all the fabrics I have inward properly. So I will have it like so. Okay, so now I have this turned properly. So the next step is to close the opening I have on the sides. So in doing this, I will flip this over like so. I don't need to turn this to the wrong side. So I will be holding the two edges together like so. I don't need to turn this to the wrong side. So after turning this inward like so, then I will hold the two edges together. Then I will be closing the edges this way. So this is the part I'm closing. So I will be leaving a little bit of opening towards the neckline, which I will be using in turning this inside out after stitching. So I will start stitching from this point with 1/2 inch. So firstly, I will hold this together with my sewing pin so that you understand. So this is the part I will be sewing. So I will be sewing this upwards towards the neckline point. So I have the edges pinned, as you can see. Then I left this opening, which I will be using in turning this inside out after stitching. So I will use this opening to bring this outside. So I will take this to my sewing machine, and I will be stitching with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. So guys, now I have the opening closed, as you can see, and I left a little bit of opening here, which I will be using in turning this inside out. So the next step is to pull this outward. So guys, now I have this turned inside out, as you can see, and I have the other one done as well. So the next step is to take this to my ironing board, and I will be giving it a good press. So guys, now I've given this a good press, as you can see. So the next step is to close the opening I have here, so which is the opening I use in turning this inside out. So I will close this, and I will close this. So I'll just hold it like so, put it on my sewing machine, and I will stitch. So the other side as well, I will stitch from here, and I will stop from where the opening stops. So guys, now I have the opening closed on both sides. So after attaching the neck band, the next step is to attach the sleeve.